an executive session for 3 topics. One was a joint meeting with real estate and open space. One was a property discussion, and the third was personnel, and no decisions were made. If everyone would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we have public comments and announcements. Please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber. First, I just left Leo and Andrea Kakunis's Cranberry Bog Chronicle TV show is here in Harwich today, in case none of you are following what's been happening in Harwich today with them here, but looking forward to the segment. They've already been with the Historic Society, with the Kroll Barn, Albert Rainio. They are visiting Lavender Farm, Wacquasit, and a whole bunch of other things, so look forward to seeing that. Then, of course, I wanted to start with a little bit of a story, but more of a thank you to many people. For anyone that was aware, we did our first annual barbecue competition, Beer and Bones, this Saturday, held at the Harwich Community Center, and I have a few thank yous. It takes a wonderful team to have a successful event, and that is exactly what we had this weekend for the Harwich Chamber's first annual barbecue competition, and yes, it is going to be annual. First and foremost, to Carol and Carrie, thank you for being my partner and thinking outside of the box and helping execute the day. And her amazing team, thank you. I truly appreciate all you each did. We had 5 restaurants competing: 400 East, Buca's, Depot Dogs, Jake Rooney's, Lanyard Bar and Grill, and Red River Barbecue. 4 breweries providing samplings: Cape Cod Beer, Devil's Purse, Hog Island, and Provincetown Brewing Company. Brenda's Cakes for all occasions, special barbecue, scented candles as a thank you gift, and Cape and Islands Canine Relief Fund and the band North Country rounding out the event. Our winners: pulled pork, first place Red River Barbecue, second place 400 East. Chicken wings, first place was Lanyard Bar and Grill, and ribs, first place Red River Barbecue, Lanyard was second place. Chili, first place was Buca's, Depot's Dogs, and second place was Jake Rooney's. Thank you to one of my fabulous partners who have secured a tent for next year, so we will be outside and have already started the planning. But a very extra special thank you, and I'm glad he actually is here tonight so I can embarrass him in public. Jay Kavanaugh and Peggy Garahan, Ahead with Class and Cape Destinations, for the initial conversation about barbecue, and Jay saying to me, "You have to do something." That sent me down my favorite rabbit hole, and it was such a success. So thank you. On to beach stickers. For anyone that is not following all of my obnoxious posts, beach stickers are on sale today at the Chamber and at the Community Center. The Chamber does get a $3 convenience fee. This is not new. This is because we stay open 7 days a week when the town offices are closed on the holidays. So we look forward to seeing everyone's smiling faces, as I'm sure Carolyn and I did today. And then also, the Wednesday nights are starting July 5th, and they run through August 30th, 5 to 8, and more info soon on Facebook and our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm Jay Coburn. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Community Development Partnership, or the region's nonprofit community development corporation, providing affordable housing and supporting small businesses throughout the 8 Lower Cape towns. We've got 20 plus units of affordable rental housing here in Harwich that we own and manage. I want to just take a quick moment of your time to introduce you to our new Director of Housing Advocacy. This is our program. It works with all of the towns to support select boards, community preservation committees, affordable housing committees in advancing housing production in the region. Amanda Beberin has just joined us. She is a Brewster resident, chairs the planning board in the town of Brewster, and is very familiar with the inner workings of municipal government and land use policy and affordable housing. And if I could just introduce Amanda.
Thank you all so much for giving us a minute of your time. I'm looking forward to getting to work with all of you, just getting settled into the role, but expect lots of good things to come. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We're glad to have
Of course,
you.
anytime you'd like for us to come back and talk about affordable housing, we're more than willing to do that, and really appreciate the great progress and the exciting new project that was announced a couple weeks ago here in town. Certainly a great big step forward, so thank you.
And I'm sure, Amanda, that you'll be in contact with Brianna, who's our housing advocate.
I already have been,
You
yes.
already have score. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carolyn, Community Center Director. I'm just letting you all know that our bike wash is on Wednesday, June 14th at 5 p.m. We are partnering with the Harwich Police Department's Bike Patrol, with the Kiwanis Club, and with the Harwich Bikeways. So we'll have free giveaways for young and old. So bring your bike by, come by, learn about bike safety. There's a lot of bikers on the road right now, so stop in. Also, that happens to be Flag Day, so the first 100 people get a free flag.
Very good.
You can
Thank
also
you.
pick up our newsletter and check all this amazing information out on our website, Chamber of Commerce. We have some printed. Yeah, but stop in and see us.
Thanks, Carolyn. Anyone else in the audience? And I'd like to call on Amy Yasowski. I believe she's online.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is Amy Yasowski, Conservation Administrator, and I would like to update you and the town on some of the things going on right now at Red River Beach. First, the county dredge is pumping dredge spoils from the Saquatucket Harbor Channel onto Red River Beach. This beach has not been nourished in about 10 years, and the western half is pretty much in dire need of sand. So they will be doing that this week and into next week. Timing is something we really didn't have control over. The county dredges and does nourishment for the entire county. So whatever window they give Harwich is the window we get. So with all hopes, it will be done by the end of next week. And the second update is that we have a piping plover nest that's due to hatch very soon. So people who've been down to Red River Beach will notice that we have, the DPW has put up the barricades, the Jersey barriers on the last third of the parking lot, as they have done for many years in the past. And people will notice that it's a little bit later than normal, and this is because we lost our first nest. An extreme high tide in late April wiped away the first nest that this pair of birds had. And when a nest is lost very early in the season, piping plovers will re-nest. And that is what happened here. So they're due to hatch very soon. Unfortunately, this means that after they hatch, for the 4 to 5 weeks after they hatch, the barricades will still be up. We have to comply with state and federal law to protect these birds. So any machinery within 1,000 yards has to be kind of accounted for. By doing this blocking of the parking lot, we can protect the birds to the best extent feasible while still leaving the majority of the parking lot open. So we did put up signage there, and we'll also post something on the website this week. We wanted to let the town, make the town aware of both of these two actions happening at Red River Beach.
Thanks, Amy. Any idea when the barriers would go down?
Mid to late July.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, I
Thank you.
actually, we have one, that the town offices will be closed on Monday, June 19th, 2023, in observance of the Juneteenth holiday. Did you have anything else, Joe?
Do you want to make an announcement about the next board meeting?
Okay, the next board meeting will be July 26th.
June
I'm sorry, June 26th, because next week is going to be the first of our working sessions. We will be having a working session on June 20th, which we'll discuss a little bit later. So the next official board meeting will be June 26th. Anything else?
Is this yours or mine?
That can be yours.
Thank you.
Now we would like an update from District Attorney Galaboy, and the first thing we'd like is how exactly do we say your name?
Haha, fair enough. Rob Galaboys.
Galaboyce, okay.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, good evening. My name is Rob Galaboys. I am the recently elected District Attorney for the Cape and Islands, and I appreciate this opportunity to come before you this evening, just to give you a little bit of update of what we've been doing in my first 5 months, 1 week, and 1 day to the calendar. And I know you have a heavy agenda, so I'll keep it about 5 minutes or less. On January 4th, when I took office, my first order of business was to swear in Jessica Alumba as my first assistant. For those of you who may be a little unfamiliar with the workings of the District Attorney's Office, the first assistant District Attorney essentially is in charge, despite my title. They're in charge of the caseload. We have about 12,000 cases that we handle on an annual basis through our 5 district courts and our Superior Court and the Juvenile Court. And she's also in charge of our staff, which numbers about 64 at the moment. So she has obviously a very important job. What was special of that particular appointment was Jess is the first woman to ever hold that position in the history of the Cape and Islands, which originated in 1974. Jess arrives to us after spending about 25 years in total through being a prosecutor at the Plymouth County DA's office, Bristol County DA's office, and the Attorney General's office. She has about 15 murder cases under her belt, so we're very lucky to have her. Under her leadership, she created what's called vertical prosecution. What that is when a defendant comes before the court for an arraignment, that's the initial proceeding in any case, a prosecutor is assigned to that case from the outset and remains with that case all the way through pre-trials motion stage or disposition and trial stage. And as you might imagine, for those cases where we have victims, it makes it easier for them to know which prosecutor they're going to be working with in their particular case. They know from that very first day forward. Also under Jess's leadership, we formed an unsolved homicide unit. When I took office, the Cape and Islands had 9 unsolved homicides. Within the first week, we had a group of detectives come to us with a case that dated back to 2011 in the village of Hyannis. Within the first 2 months of our administration, we indicted 2 people for first-degree murder in that 12-year-old case, leaving us now with 8 cases that are unsolved. And I can let you know we are actively working a few of them right now. What else? We have, or since I was elected in that transition period between the election and taking office January 4th and spilling over a little bit, I went on a tour. I wanted to meet with all 22 of my police chiefs in their own offices, including Chief Gilmet here in Harwich. And I sat down in Chief Gilmet's office. We talked for about an hour, and I essentially went over with, what did you like about the prior administration that you would like my administration to continue? And what are some things that you'd like to maybe see handled differently? And he gave me about an hour of his time, and I was really appreciative of the chief's advice. We also opened up a grant writing department in our office. That's a first for the Cape and Islands DA's office. Right now, our full-time grant writer is working on areas such as human trafficking and the opioid epidemic, of course, as well. We are now trying to form a diversity, equity, inclusion committee. It's being chaired by Angela Scott Price. She is on the select board in Falmouth. She holds the position of vice chair on that board. We also have as members Tara Vargas Wallace. She is the founder and CEO of Amplified POC. And we also have Jean Morrison, who is the co-president of the League of Women Voters on our committee. I'd like to take this time to invite members here in the audience, of course, as well as those who might be watching on their computers or televisions. If you have an interest in joining the Cape and Islands DA's Office Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, I ask that you contact our office in Barnstable. We are having our first organizational meeting on June 29th in our office at 5:30. And for those of you who can attend physically, great. Otherwise, we can provide a Zoom link. So if you have any interest in joining that particular committee, please accept this invitation to do so. I'm almost done. I know you're busy. We are also now collecting data in the office. This is a first for all the cases that come in, the 12,000 or so that I mentioned. We are noting, of course, things like gender, race, ethnicity, charges that you're facing, bail, whether you make bail or you're not able to make bail. And the goal is at the end of the year to produce a report. We started training staff in April of this year to collect that data. As you might imagine, consistency is key. So we had to train our administrative assistants throughout our various courts to make sure they enter the data consistently with one another. We started producing the data on May 1st, and we went back just after May 31st to take a look at how we were doing. Admittedly, we had to make a few tweaks. We hope to review it again on July 1st for the June collection, and the goal is from July 1 to December 31st to have a set of data to be able to review and analyze. And we're not going to just do that internally. We're going to publish that so all of you get to digest it and come back to us with whatever comments and concerns that you might have. And finally, I want to talk to you about something that I think was the biggest issue over the year campaigning for the office, and that was the mental health court. I talked about over the course of a year how a mental health court session exists in district courts throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, every district except the Cape and the Islands. And in a mental health court, professionals in the field come right into the courtroom, and they work with that struggling defendant to try to identify what is the core issue that that particular defendant is grappling with. And when you do that, you then have a chance to try to treat that core issue. And by doing that, as we all know, you have an opportunity to reduce recidivism and therefore increase public safety. About 3 weeks ago now, I was in a session in Barnstable District Court where Judge Julian, who's the presiding justice, announced we're getting a mental health court. He announced there's a judge that's already been assigned. I've already assigned a prosecutor who majored in psychology during her undergraduate days, and we're looking forward to this court session opening up by the end of this summer. So I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come in with some updates of what's going on. With your permission, I'd like to be able to come back in about 6 months with further updates.
Thank you very much. That would be our pleasure. Thanks for a very thorough yet concise report. We appreciate it.
I recognize the agenda. I appreciate your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, okay? Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
The consent agenda, Jeff?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes for June 5th, 2023. I also move that we vote to approve the Assistant Town Administrator's recommendation to grant permission by NSTAR Electric Company, DBA Eversource Energy, for the purpose to install 22 feet plus or minus 1 to 3 inch conduit and one handhole 65/H2A at 24 Central Ave.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, Joe? New business, A. Joe, do you want to take that?
I certainly do, Madam Chair, thank you. Good evening to you, to the board members, everybody assembled, and those on television or stream. It is truly my pleasure to present to you for your affirmation my appointment of Carlene, AKA Carly Jones. As you know, Carly's worked for us for just over 5 years in the assessing department, but really for the last year in partnership with Gail McClare, our interim, has been a driving force in the assessing department. I interviewed Carly and an external candidate, and to me, there's no hesitation, there's no question. She has drive, she has ambition, she's done exceedingly well in developing as much information as she can without actually doing the job. I will share with you that she, one of the best questions that she answered was, are you ready for this? And she said, I'm 92% ready. So I asked her what the additional 8% was, and it said she had never led the tax reclassification process, which she wouldn't have. So I informed her that with a new finance director, a new treasurer, and a returning town clerk, that there are a lot of folks that are new at that for Harwich. But that honesty and openness, she has worked on everything that the assessing department does. So it is my privilege to present her to you as my choice for our next Director of Assessing.
Before I take a motion, I just want to read a text that I got. Richard Waystack couldn't be here tonight because he's out of state, and he wanted to say he would have loved to have been here to see Carly confirmed. Would I please mention that the Board of Assessors strongly support the confirmation of Carlene Jones? So I'd just like to add that. Can I have a motion?
I move that we approve the appointment of Carlene Jones as the Assessing Director.
I think we affirm. Isn't that the right word?
It's either confirm or affirm. It's,
Oh,
but we
okay.
don't approve.
Confirm or affirm, is that what you meant?
That's exactly what I meant.
I thought so.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. 4-0, Joe.
Thank you very much.
We have two members of the Board of Assessors here as well.
Did either of you care to comment? Okay. That's good, we like that. Approve a conservation restriction for Spruce Woods project. Is that something you're presenting, Joe? Michael?
I move that we approve a conservation restriction for the Spruce Woods project. That's contained in our packet. What?
As contained in the packet.
As contained in the packet.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0, Joe?
Thank you.
Do you want to say anything?
C? I'll take a motion on C.
I move that we approve the proposed Select Board Committee liaison list.
Second.
Any discussion? Done?
Yes, we might want to change the titles for people here in doing this. The one that we got in here is Michael as chair, and
Oh, that's the old one. The new one isn't in there yet. That's before I made
same
the
assignments,
changes.
or is it,
We'll get that fixed.
are they the same assignments, or are they just titles?
Yeah, that's the old one, because it still has Michael with the ambulance. Jeff called me on this, and I purposely didn't put the new assignments in there so that the board had a few minutes to look at it and possibly make any trades, and we'll publish the new list next week.
Can we wait on that then? 'Cause I'd like to trade for at least one. I didn't get this.
Yeah. You didn't get an email from me? Okay. All right. We'll put that on hold. Yes.
If I may, we have in the past approved this and then horse traded after the fact.
Okay.
Okay.
That
That's
way
all right
it's-
with everybody.
That way it's amongst the members and not back to the chair. Mary, you did great work on this, and we have traded in the past, so.
Okay.
there's no reason not to vote it tonight.
All right.
Well, that's fine with me, but I'm not trading anything.
What if I give you two committees for one?
Some of us can be had, right? Okay, we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0, Joe.
I move that we approve the amendments to the personnel bylaw compensation table to include zoning compliance officer position.
Second.
Any discussion? Michael?
Joe, is that the only change?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0, Joe?
Thank you.
I move that we approve the annual committee reappointment list.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With the stipulation that their terms to expire June 30th, 2026.
Is that in your motion and second?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0.
I move that we approve a new 2023 annual Sunday entertainment license for the Harwich Antique Center at 10 Route 28, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. inside, including live recorded music, amplification, dancing by live performers.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, Joe?
I move that we approve a new 2023 seasonal weekday and Sunday entertainment license for the Mad Minnow Bar and Kitchen at 554 Route 28, weekdays and Sunday, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. outside, live recorded music, amplification, and dancing by live performers.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Bob Cohn from Pleasant Street. I sent you an email this morning. I have some concerns about the Mad Minnows entertainment license. It's expanding. We are acoustic abutters. But I do support them getting the entertainment license, and I spent a few minutes talking with Tony back here. I think he's going to make changes as needed and be able to work with us. So mostly, I'm still nervous about what might transpire, but I think we've got a path forward. So I support their getting the entertainment license, and thank you very much.
Okay. Michael?
I just like to add, I thank Bob for your email today, and thank you for supporting and giving the business a chance. Mad Minnow has been a great partner to the town, and they've always demonstrated responsibility even in the front. And the fact that you're able to have that conversation with them and work together with them is really what we've wanted with all of the businesses in Harwich Port. So thank you, Bob. And thank you, Tony.
Anyone else? Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to Bob and Tony there. I printed your email, and over the last couple of years, I paid close attention to this issue that our town has had. And what stood out clear as day was I'd be happy to work with them if that would help. And I really thank you for being that neighborly. And I have full confidence in the Mad Minnow in working with you as well.
Don?
Nothing to say.
You've convinced me, because I was going to be a no on this, Bob. My concerns with Harwich Port being so close to the residents, and I know how close that is to Miles Street and back, but with your support, I'll be a yes. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0, Joe? I think you're up, Joe, the project list.
So hopefully the board members, you have in front of you the 11 by 17 two-page document that is also included in the packet. So if I may, Madam Chair and members, that is the primary document, or what I'm referring to as the project roster. However, as you've heard me say a few times.
Sorry.
Yep. It's more about the conversations than the audience.
Oh. Would you step outside if you're going to have a conversation, please, because the mics pick it up. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, the document that you have in front of you, the two-pager, is the project roster. This is the document that I referred earlier in this spring when talking about what we, the team, the town of Harwich, are working on. And as you can see there, the majority of these are projects that emanated from the 2023 annual town meeting, but have also been combined with lingering projects, if you will, from past years, including 2022. I can, in a moment, do a deeper dive on some of the statistics, if you will, related to these projects. But I also want to make the board aware of three other documents that I'm tracking in addition to this project roster. And this project roster at present represents 100 separate and unique items that we are dealing with or managing on a regular basis is probably the better way to say it. So in addition to the project roster, there is a list that I'm lovingly referring to as UP, and it is an acronym, UUP. U is unassigned, unaffiliated projects. And these are other projects that I'm becoming aware of, either by discussions through board meetings or as we get into some of the projects on the project roster, we find more things related. The example that I've been using for some of those presently unassigned or unaffiliated, and the unaffiliated means it's not tied to an actual article like the project roster items are. Some examples would be, as I've talked about before, traffic flow in and around 204 Sisson Road. So we can see on the project roster that obviously there are several projects related to both cultural affairs and public works with regard to the building at 204 Sisson Road. And I believe it's fair to say that we hope and expect that there'll be expanded use at that building. You're this evening signing an additional series of license agreements for activities there at the building. So we know that the layout of the property, where it used to be a middle school and an elementary school, we have significant traffic flow issues anytime there's drop-off and pickup at the neighboring Harwich Elementary School. So again, it's related to a project, but it's presently unassigned. There's several other examples I can give. There are about 7 right now on my list of unassigned projects. Another category is something I've been talking to each of you when you have constituent requests or inquiries. and that is tracking of constituent response issues or items. One of them that I think you all received a few weeks back was from an abutter to a property whereby there was a special permit zoning decision. And so two of you shared that with me. I've been working with staff and formulating a response. Generally speaking, right now, there are another 6 items that relate to that. Now, that's important, I think, because projects may result from those discussions. A better example would be the light at Cahoon Hollow Beach, whereby there was a constituent inquiry that's now led to a board action that now will lead to a project, the installation of the light. That's not something that was otherwise contemplated. So these are other things that are tied into the overall project management of the town. And last but not least is the 2024 annual town meeting prep. I purposely did not look at my roster to see how many days there are. Even I'm getting tired of that little shtick. However, we know that as the summer progresses, Community Preservation Committee is going to be doing work over the summer, so we know we're developing articles and topics for the annual town meeting warrant. On that list at present, I have 5 different topics. So, all of which leads to your discussion this evening on prioritization of projects on the roster. I just wanted to make the board and the public aware of the number of different projects we work on. And lastly, if I could, to help stimulate the discussion, from my perspective, it would be helpful if there was a discussion on prioritization within the departments themselves. Again, I can go through the various statistics. There are several departments that have multiple projects. And then, of course, there's probably a handful that have only one each. But that doesn't take into consideration anything else that may come along during the fiscal year. So with that, I will yield, take a sip, take a breath, and welcome the discussion.
Okay. Anyone want to start? Michael,
Why not?
why not?
Joe, I've got, and I don't know how you want this, but I think we could probably argue for the next hour and a half, or talk for the next hour and a half on what our priorities are. First priority to me is understanding we've got procurement open from 2013, 14, 17, 18, and 19. So for me, prioritization would be starting with the old procurements to see if we actually still need them anymore. And then make a new list for us so that when we go back to town meeting next year, we can reappropriate or ask town meeting to reappropriate that money. But I have to believe some of these old ones, they're not that important to somebody if they're still on here, or nobody had the task to do them. So, for me, I'd like to see administration work with whoever the appropriate person is to see if I'm all done with that project, take it off of our list, because there's several things on this list that I could see coming off very quickly, and then it won't be so daunting. That's one.
May I reply?
Yes.
So first of all, I agree with the
That's
concept.
up to Mary.
Say again?
It's up to Mary.
Sorry.
Yes, she nodded, yes, you
Thank
may.
you. I thought she did. I agree with the sentiments that you're saying, and further discussion. Building off of this meeting, we have our all-hands department head meeting tomorrow morning, which was a next step anyway as I was developing the roster, but knowing that the board was going to talk about prioritizations, have exactly those level of conversations. Of the 100 that you see there, 70% of those projects are new, meaning 61 from this year and 9 held over from last year. But to your point, Member McCaskill, there are at least a dozen that are many years old. So exactly as you've indicated, the discussion will be, if we're done with that, then the funds that still remain will be relied upon to fund articles at next year's town meeting. Because unlike free cash or general appropriations, those funds will stay in that state of unuse, if you will. And so the best thing to do is exactly as Mr. McCaskill has said, is use that as a funding source for new projects that come up next year at town meeting. And at least that way, you folks have a potential funding mechanism, and town meeting's aware. We're done with this, and we're asking your permission to repurpose it Otherwise, it could then be voted to be released. But I agree with the sentiments that are being expressed.
Michael?
Joe, when can we expect you to come back? You said the initial conversation is tomorrow. When could we expect you to come back with department heads' response to some of the ones that need to just go away?
So, two thoughts on that. I know that there will be some items that will be coming before you at your meeting on the 26th of June that may either be procurements that I've done or procurements that you need to do. So there's an element of that. Otherwise, given that you're going to the every other week schedule in the summertime, I would be prepared to have a standing agenda item where we update the progress of where we're at. For me, the benefit of this is, to my knowledge, I'm not aware that we've had this level of information, so it's great to collate it and have it, but that information's no good if you don't do something with it. And so it makes it, to me, easier to manage and plan and to offer updates going forward. So I'd be more than happy to do it as a regular item.
That sounds like a good plan. Don, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I'd like to offer, Madam Chair, to offer an alternative to that. I like the idea of the working sessions that you had proposed, and this is the kind of thing that really doesn't fit into a meeting really easily. It's like watching paint dry as we discuss this. It would seem to me that it should at least be in one working session for us to have a conversation that we're really working at this thing, as opposed to. And then the second part of this, if I can,
Yep, go
Madam
right
Chair,
ahead.
to throw into the hopper, along with Michael's comments about some of them being old, I would also like to be able to look at this and prioritizing it based on the magnitude of the cash, because 4,000 doesn't mean the same to me as 150,000. So when we're working out the priorities, there's got to have to be a little give and take in that area. But I would like to pitch for at least one of these being in the working session.
Well, why don't we do both? Make it a working
could.
session, but also have Joe update us as he proposed through the summer when we meet every other week. Jeff, any?
No, I have no comment.
Okay.
No comment.
Joe had his hand up, and then I have
Oh,
several more.
Joe? And I get my 10 cents in too. Go ahead, Joe.
And thank you. And I also want to put out there to the residents, taxpayers, and voters of the town through the board, this isn't a new project. This is what we do day in and day out. But I appreciate the direction and guidance of the board to be able to encapsulate it and be able to have these conversations. You know, on the one hand, 61 new projects, so to speak, that emanated from our annual town meeting sounds a little daunting. But when you look back at 2022, there's only 9 left over. Now, when you do a deeper dive, some of those 9 are ongoing mega projects like wastewater, water, and other things. But it bears it out there. And I will also add, I was surprised but somewhat pleased that it was a round number, so that I know that 61 projects out of 100 is 61%. So it was nice to have that nice even number. But as we draw that down and prepare for the next cycle of projects, I hope that everybody takes comfort that we are on top of it and we're aware of it.
Okay, Michael?
Do you want to go first?
No, because I think I'm interested in the same thing you are, so you go.
So, Joe, there's, I guess I'd like the board to understand, as you put a department down on this and a primary owner of the project, how does this work? And I certainly appreciate the delegation part of this, because not all of it can land and stay in the front office, which is what the problem we had years ago. So how does this work when some of these people are not procurement people or expertise in the field that you've assigned the project to?
So there's a pretty deep answer, if I can go that way to start. I think I've said to boards over the time that I've served as the town administrator that I consider our department heads to be experts in their field. And so what that means is we've had conversations over the last several years where a department head is understood to be first a subject matter expert in the area of the department and/or programs that the department is responsible for. So the recreation director is understood to be a recreation expert, planning director, so on and so forth. So that's where we start. That's their bailiwick, if you will. But what differentiates a department head from anyone else on staff are the other tasks that they need to do. Development, personnel management, procurement management, project management, leadership, and what does that mean? And leadership's further refined as strong communication and advocating for the department and for the overall town. So that's the viewpoint that I've come to bear on the expectations of those folks that work directly for me, and then in turn, we all work for you, the board, who all of us combined work for the residents, taxpayers, and voters of the town. So that's point number one, meaning there is expertise in administration on budget, procurement, personnel. So we remain, Megan and I, Kathleen as well, as our finance director, town accountant, the overseers, if you will, and the directors of those processes. Part of our discussion tomorrow is we're going to do a primer reminder. Most of the procurement that is done is of a 30B nature. And that is simply reduced to, if it's under 10,000, this is what you have to do. If it's 10,000 to 50,000, that's what you do. If it's over 50,000, we're going to slow down our speech a little bit because that's a more in-depth. So the vast majority of these are procurements, but the vast majority of those are straightforward 30Bs. But to the point, administration remains in charge of that. So then as far as prioritization, I think I used the example before that one of the projects that came out of town meeting is the preschool stipend program that was championed by all of you, but certainly no bigger champion than Select Board Member Kavanaugh. So there is no natural owner of that other than administration. Well, administration is tied into that. But I sought volunteers, and I had a suggestion, and received a volunteer who otherwise did not have projects on the list. And so for me, that shows leadership and that shows a willingness to serve, but it still comes back to administration. Because if it's procurement, I either need to execute the contract or you folks need to execute it. So administration's overseeing, we're partnering with our department heads and we're giving them the tools and the skills necessary. And that's on the procurement side of it. Some other things that you can see in there, these are items, but the town clerk has a number of submittals. I don't think it's a trade secret to know that I believe she has done all of her required submittals. Now, it's also no secret that I keep telling the town clerk that I don't work for her, she doesn't work for me, she outranks me. But it's on there as something that came out of town meeting. After our meeting tomorrow, those will come off the list because they're done. So it's really the majority of this is procurement, and the majority of the procurement is pretty straightforward, but we continue to teach and train towards that.
Follow up to that. Am I safe to say that what this means is the person that's going to take it on, like, let's say it's Ginny at the library. She does the part of the procurement that actually describes what the heck she wants.
Correct.
But then it comes to you and/or Megan to do the actual procurement.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Absolutely right. And what you described, and that's what we've trained for the department heads, is let's remember, first of all, how did this come to be? It usually comes to be that it was either an operating budget item at town meeting, or in many cases, it was an actual standalone article with an appropriation and a procurement to occur. That started with the advocacy of the department head, saying, as a subject matter expert, my department needs the following. And so that's the life cycle, if you will. It starts out as an idea that then goes through the town meeting process, and then the next step is, as you've said, we take their words of need and turn that into scope of services. And that's the most critical part of the procurement, other than how are you going to fund it? And so that really is the process. And for me, there's a simplicity in that because they've already done a lot of that work when they first advocated for the project in the form of an article or appropriation.
Okay. Michael?
So Joe, and one of them's an ask, and hopefully an ask that the board will support to change who's doing it and the prioritization. But looking at Judah Eldridge from 2018, and then Judah Eldridge again this year's town meeting, why would we have, okay, the top one's administration. I believe the next one was, let me just find it, conservation. So we've got conservation on one, and then we have you on the other. So I would just ask, and I don't really need an answer unless you want to, but I think I would ask that those get combined so that they're being done together. And then I would ask on that, and these other real estate ones, for instance, 70 Willow Street, acquire parcel off Pleasant Lake Ave, which is the one that we last year voted to take that lot in the middle of the Mars line by eminent domain. Acquire 62 Route 28. Why we would put housing advocacy down as the point person on that. Aren't those ready for the lawyers? And aren't they ready for the lawyers? Shouldn't we put a lawyer beside this?
To the last part first, the answer generally is yes. One of the other statistics I'll put out there is that there are 29 unclassified projects. And that's because with our discussion tomorrow, it's going to be, where is it? Well, in many of those instances, it's already with legal or surveyor or appraiser and all of that. So it's not as much a procurement anymore as it is the final stages of legal matters. And that's why they're presently unclassified. However, I do want to specifically to Judah Eldridge, those were originally assigned to our conservation agent, and what you've identified is an error in my sheet. Megan Eldridge asked that those two could be assigned to her, and she had a great reason. She's already done the bulk of work for all of that, and it is true to show that in administration because she did the work.
Okay. But
Okay.
realistically, can I
Yeah.
continue? Realistically, it's in legal hands, and those should be a fairly easy lift at this point.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely right.
If we could also get, Mary, through you, if we could get an update, and I know we're gonna do a legal update, a general legal update, but more importantly towards these procurements, can we get a legal update on where they stand with some of this title work and some of this bound work as it relates to this list?
Yes.
And just to clarify, even though, as Michael said, most of that's with legal, isn't the reason you want a staff person assigned to it, so one person on the team is the connection with
Correct.
legal
There
and
is-
the communication with the rest of the team?
Correct. There's an element of, as town administrator, I need to manage all of these individuals that are managing these projects. For as robust as we are, we being the administration team, there's only 4 of us. And so if I don't rely upon the resources that the board has given me over time in the personnel, there's all the expressions about shared work lightens the load, et cetera, et cetera. But that's really to make sure that we have an owner for all of these.
Right.
Now, that ownership never in any way absolves me or administration, but me. I'm responsible for all of it. And so really, this is to make sure I can give comfort to everybody that we're not forgetting things, we're getting things done, and I know who I can reach out to get answers to questions.
Great. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go a little bit further than Michael did, though. Taking the Pleasant Lake property, just for a second, that has multiple parts to it. Brianna being involved, I can see, but being the point person, I can't see, because it really has to get from the point where we perfect whatever we perfect. We either buy it or we close out the eminent domain. It gets filed in the registry of deeds. Then we do and conveys the property over to the housing trusts, which is why I could see Brianna being involved as a thread. But she has no particular expertise in that first part. I really would like to see that get finished so it's in the hands of the trust. They could do something, but I'm not sure that she's the primary mover of that. It really has to be the front office.
Joe, can you reply to
say-
that?
That was my comment prior to the comments. This is all the responsibility of administration and the town administrator. What I'm trying to point out there is that we have an organization of 1 administrator, 1 assistant town administrator, about 27 department heads, and about 250 employees under that. And so the only way I can get things accomplished is by tracking and managing. Now, I am not indicating that anybody on this who is a primary owner is a primary owner to you or to the town. They're the primary owner to me. And so I am trying to redistribute the work, And I am also trying to manage all of my directs in a similar fashion about what is a department head. In that instance, I think if the department head were here, they would express that there's an appreciation for learning all of the aspects of being a department head. But that is not to say that the housing advocate or the cultural affairs director or the DPW director, or any of them, own it as far as, here you go, board, they're going to get back to you. It's ownership through administration. And I think that's why you may have the topic that you're talking about for your working session next week, and that gets to the role of the administrator vis-a-vis all these actions. So for me, it isn't that I'm looking for any one of my direct reports to own it and to go off on their own and to figure it out. On the contrary, I know that I can reach out to them on any level of discussion and have them work on something. To the specific example, that's one of those unassigned. That's because it is not a procurement, it is with legal, but I didn't have the time to update where it is with legal. And that gets to an overall project management concept of categorizations that I use for the follow-up actions. I'm not married to this report or the words within it. I'm married to the concept of tracking everything. Follow-up actions may be legal review. Follow-up action may be submitted to the AG, whatever the case may be. To me, the more important thing is to demonstrate, we know from this town meeting and last year, there's 100 items that we're working on. We know there are other items of other categories, like the UUP and the constituent response, that we're also working on. But none of this should indicate that these folks own it outside of me. On the contrary, together, they work for me, I work for you, and that's the ownership. If the board wants to go in a different direction, I think you have perfect timing set up for your discussion next week.
Okay, but to me, that makes sense. I understand Brianna is not that experienced, and you're gonna be a big piece of that one. But that's how she's gonna learn and develop, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've gone past 2 town meetings since the vote to take that property. That's kind of, this is a high level, that's why I brought it up. It's a high-level priority, and we can't do anything with it. The process of eminent domain doesn't, the clock doesn't start until it's filed at the Registry of Deeds. This is a top-line ask, because the trust can't do anything with it. It's not their property. It's not available for anybody to do anything with yet until it gets properly to the point where the Registry of Deeds has it listed as a taking.
But I understood we had an opinion, I believe, from legal that we can do, this is Marceline, we can do whatever we want.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this property was approved 2 town meetings ago, and as far as I know, we haven't actually started a time clock on it yet.
Are you talking about the one that's in the middle of Marceline?
In the middle, because that is what the town took, administration took it.
Right.
And I don't know whether it's been filed. All I'm saying is that I'd feel more comfortable being able to ask that question right here until it gets filed properly, at which point I'm perfectly happy with everything that was just said.
And you can certainly do that. We're going to update this every couple of weeks, and Joe is our contact. All that Brianna's on there, correct me if I'm wrong, Brianna's on there because she's your person to chase the parts of it that she can chase.
Correct. And we do have an update through Katie Klein, and it is on the schedule for July.
Yeah, okay.
And if I may further, council also opined that while we are working on the taking, there is nothing that holds up the trustees
Correct.
from their actions, as you know from your
Correct.
meeting today.
Okay. Don?
No, that I got.
Yep.
But it's one of those, again, where we're looking, and it's easy enough to see us getting 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. This doesn't affect the other 2 properties, but it could affect what we're doing overall, and it would be really nice to follow through on the town meeting action, because they voted to do it.
I don't disagree with you, but I think this document is light years ahead of a year ago, when it was almost as many old ones as current ones.
I'm just picking on this one.
I know you are, but I would just like to give Joe some recognition for the list having gotten smaller, and I counted, there's 100 on there, I counted 24 that are between 3 and 10 years old. So 75% of that is new stuff. I think that's pretty good. Michael?
Yeah, no, Joe, thank you for the explanation, and I knew where you were going with that. I wanted to have the conversation.
Absolutely.
To Don's point, and part of tonight's discussion was prioritization, and I think we've just heard from Don, and I would echo his concern and put that at the top of the list on administration, but administration is going to get an update from that department head I get. But to Don, that's a very important one. To me, that's a very important one. Which brings me to the most important one to me, which is, not that they're, I don't want anyone to think that this is not all important.
Which one's your favorite child, Michael?
2023, so this year's action. Article 43, dispose of surplus property at 276 Queen Anne Road. And if I follow down the list of what's on Public Works, they have the most. I do not want this one lost in Public Works. And this, to me, is a very easy win for the town of Harwich. And we all saw what we brought forward last year when we had sold West Harwich School and Bank Street Fire, went into a sinking fund. It was new to me. But we were able to do some real good with that money for Brooks. This is a huge win for the town, and this is the perfect time of year to be selling a piece of property. While everyone's here, while everything is green, and I would just say that that is my absolute most important one, and I would like administration to do that one start to finish.
Don?
Mutual admiration here. I totally agree. We did this with where Stonewood Products is located for the second part of the plot. It's not just we get to sell it while the market's up, but it's that we get to have some commercial activity with people who get paid for a living higher than a cash register operator. I mean, this has a number of beneficial effects, and it gets it back on the tax rolls. So it's a super high priority.
I agree. That should be number one of the 100 in my eyes. Money, tax rolls, maybe some jobs, depending on what kind of business goes in there, some construction work, depending on what they build. It just has plus signs all over the place.
May I reply?
Would you like to comment, Joe?
I certainly would. Several points. First of all, the reason why that particular article is related to the Director of Public Works is because you may have noticed if you drive by it, there are now Jersey barriers blocking the property. And that was on my directive to the DPW Director, to his team. And the purpose for that was simple. The town is demonstrating that we are taking action on that property, and I wanted to make sure that we could swear to the fact that there was no access to the property off of the shoulder. So if an old Cadillac pulls over on the shoulder of the road, loses their oil pan and releases oil on the shoulder, there is no accusation that the oil pan was inside the property, and now we have to do remediation of oil. So we have secured the property, for lack of a better word, on that instance. I have no argument or quarrel with anything you've said about the simplicity of it. My understanding as we developed this article for town meeting was that the town is looking to dispose of this surplus property for the highest, best cash offer that's out there. And so that is the manner in which we're working on the RFP. To the point about the Public Works Department having 24 projects, it's the number one reason why I ran my report to see how it broke out by departments. So for me, to give some information and hopefully comfort, what you don't see in that spreadsheet are the several other columns that I have. There are secondary owners for most of the procurement projects. And in this instance, this is a procurement because we have to sell it by request for proposal. For the DPW department, it is a division, according to our charter. And that's significant because divisions have more than one department. And so we know that the way that Link Hooper has built his organization, he has 5 individuals that he considers to be of management for various functions. So the easiest one to identify is Sean Libby. So anything to do with buildings, Sean Libby is Link's facilities maintenance manager. There are others that are assigned to this. I am still going to rely upon the DPW director and his team to help us with the RFP, given how simple it is. But the biggest thing that they could have done is what they did with the Jersey barriers. And that's why there's that connection to that department. So again, for me, if you look at Public Works as a division, they have 24 projects, or 24% of the projects listed, but they have 5 managers that can then work on those, and it works out roughly that each of those managers will have probably 4 specific projects to work on, which if you look at the overall, anyone that has multiple, the average number, for example, random comment would be our Channel 18 station manager, 6 projects on the list. Harbor Master, 6 projects on the list. Recreation, 6 projects. Wastewater, 5 projects. So those managers within that organization have roughly the same burden that everyone else is doing. And we categorize them as managers. So for me, I feel comfortable with that. But the point being is there has to be this cascading of responsibility, both ways, if you will, and then ultimately to you folks.
Knowing how easy that is, can you give us a date when that could be out, that specific?
Sure, I don't see any reason why the board couldn't
Yeah.
vote this on July 10th.
Excellent.
And if I hear different tomorrow, it would be earlier, but certainly July 10th.
That'd be fabulous. Anyone else? Michael? Jeff?
You first.
Just in closing, I don't want, because of all my questions, I don't want it lost that this is excellent.
Thank you.
It's not, we've had different variations of procurement spreadsheets. We've had a lot of, this is something we can check boxes.
Amen.
So,
It's
as we
tangible.
talk in a little while about, topics for the working session.
Right.
I'd like to give this a couple weeks to see how many are gone. You mentioned that the clerk's probably already done all of hers, so there's 5 lines gone or whatever it might be. But certainly, Joe, it's appreciated, and I think it's good.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Just
Jeff?
if I may, Madam Chair. Yeah, Joe, I feel the same way. I think this is exactly how I conducted my business over the last 30-plus years. It's right there for me to see. It's right by the bedside table, and we check things off as we get them done. I think, in summary for me, to make it clear in my head, how I hear this from everybody is, it's the response. This is a huge list for one person. So if you don't delegate, there's no chance. There's really no chance for an effective, efficient way to move this list forward. And at least that's what I'm hearing. I'm also hearing that the role of the select board is to work on the prioritization for these projects to then talk to you about.
Certainly.
So that you can bring them to the people who are working so hard on this with you. The team approach, I like that. And then for everybody, this is a catalyst for progress. And it's very tangible and very easy to see. And as an observer for a number of years, sitting on that side, that's been the biggest hurdle, I think, is to move things forward. And organizationally, this is a home run. I think we're on to something really strong for our town. I thank you for the effort and everybody on this list for their efforts as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Joe, anything else from you?
Well, really building off of what Select Board Member Handler just said, and I wish I had said something you said, so I'm going to steal it. But that catalyst for progress, I couldn't agree more, and I thank you for the way you've said it, because that is the intent. However, my goal, say 2 years from now, is that there is not this massive list. Rather, as we build town meeting warrants and the mechanisms by which to fund projects, it starts there and it ends after town meeting with we know what we were doing, we know who the owners are, we got the money from town meeting, let's just do it, and we rinse and repeat. In the meantime, I hope there is tremendous value seen by anybody hearing these conversations or looking at the list. If they think that the town of Harwich and our employees don't do anything, they do hundreds of things. Because these are not just actions related to their departments, they're in some cases above and beyond. So while we continue to provide programming at every one of the departments that our department heads manage, we're doing additional work as well. So we've got a lot of great, hardworking people who are doing hard work, and I look forward to presenting their work to you folks, showing accomplishments going forward. Because I know through it all, the voters will evaluate you, you will evaluate me, and I evaluate the team. And we all want to be evaluated well and say that we did the work that was necessary for the residents and taxpayers and voters of our town. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Joe. And again, I remember the list from a year ago when it was probably 50-50, old stuff and current. So job well done getting this far.
Thank you. I appreciate the support and direction.
Discussion on topics for the working group session. I'll start with this one. My original thought on the working session was, I know my job as chair, at least one of them, is to come up with the agenda, and I thought, I want to make sure the agendas I come up with encompass what the four of you want. So that was my original thought, and then Michael said that tied in well with setting the objectives for Joe for the new fiscal year. So that, well, that makes sense, so we should incorporate that. And then Joe and I chatted a few days after that, and he thinks we ought to go back one step further, and I agree, and start with some clarification on what each of our roles are, what the town administrator's role is, what the select board's role is, what the committee's roles are, and how we interact. So that's my thought, is we'll tackle that next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And then I'd like to save 10, 15 minutes at the end and talk about, we may need a second session on that, I don't know. But whether we do or don't, take the last 10, 15 and come with some suggestions for things that you think should be handled in a working session. And also how often we want to do this. And if we want to do it during the summer. I'm around, I'm comfortable with the summer. Joe, I believe you and the staff agree, this is not burdensome on you. We have to produce an agenda.
Correct.
Jeff has agreed to take the minutes, and I've explained to him what you did, that they don't have to be quotes verbatim. They can be very summary. So that's my proposal. If anyone has any thoughts or suggestions, I am open. Yes,
I
Michael?
think it's a great start. Thank
Good.
you.
You're very welcome. Should be fun.
I agree.
And, I'm missing a page here. Thank you. Where are we? We're at J.
Cape Media proposal.
So, Madam Chair, as you may recall, I believe.
Oh, yes,
a member
yes,
had
yes, yes.
received an inquiry from Cape Media News,
Right.
and I
They-
turn it back over to you.
Yes, now that I'm on the right page, they have asked if someone from the, oh, you brought the email, good. Mitch Salk is the news director for Cape Media News, and he wants to do some legislative updates. So he's looking to have a different member of a select board from a different town come in and talk to him about what's going on. So all he's really asking is to give him an okay to do that. Sounded like a great idea to me. Anyone want to comment? Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. He hit me up with that conversation yesterday at the Children's Center birthday party. In a more deep sense, what he's trying to do is amongst 3 or 4 towns, rotate this around so that he can get a flavor for, okay, Dennis is doing this, and the next one is, okay, Harwich is doing this, and Yarmouth or Chatham is doing that. So, I mean, it sounded like a great idea. I don't see any, from my perspective, based on what he was saying, it might be something, I know you're going to hate me for this, but that'd be something that the chair does, just to say, okay, here's where we're at in our town, this is what we're working on.
Anyone else?
I agree, there's no harm in it, and I would just say that we would leave it open to rotate it.
Yeah.
The chair's taken on quite a bit of work, and
But that looks like an easy lift to me. It's summarizing,
I
you know,
love
5 or 6 things.
all the time. Don't get me wrong, I'm just throwing it out there that we could rotate it if you want.
And gladly we will. So we'll reply then that we're in and see when he invites us. Okay, we are up to contracts.
Madam Chair, if I may, we
Yes.
have been joined and has ever been patient is Margaret Song from Cape Light Compact. Managers and administrators last week met with Maggie Downey, and Maggie reminded me that we had an obligation to get an agreement done. I was thrilled to tell her that it was already on the agenda. That's what you have in front of you. But if you have any questions, I'm going to refer to Margaret because I can't answer them. However, I do recommend a motion that would support what's on the agenda.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve and authorize the chair to sign the memorandum of understanding for the Regional Energy Planning Assistance, our EPA grant, between the town of Harwich and Cape Light Compact.
Second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0, Joe.
Margaret, thank you for your patience. You can report back to Maggie. We'll have it signed and ready in the morning.
Thank you. Do you want a motion on B, Jeff?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the following 10 license agreements for the cultural fairs programming located at 204 Sisson Road as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're up to town administrators report.
We're truly sharing this.
As I begin my town administrator's report, I don't know where the signatures are, but I can do a little song and dance if you want to start signing some of those documents.
Tomorrow.
You wanna-
It's a
I'm gonna
million.
vote
However, I
tomorrow.
have some announcements, and I'm thrilled to make them. There's a mixture of both personnel movement in a positive direction, as well as some contracts that you were just talking about. First, I am thrilled to inform you that I have promoted Crystal Legendry in the Treasurer Collector's Office to the position of Assistant Treasurer Collector. If any of you know Crystal, you know she has been a fantastic add to staff from the moment she started here. We were able to steal her from the private sector and use the best practices that she has. She has stepped up, and I think our treasurer, Betty Clark McClay, would bear this out, as well as our finance director, Kathleen Barrett. Crystal has stepped up when we've needed her with the departures that were in the office, and with the recent departure of Sue Kerr. And so I'm thrilled to announce that promotion of Crystal as our Assistant Treasurer Collector for the town. And thank her for her willingness to serve. Related to Treasury collection, the town was informed through the former finance director that the town's contract with Kirkwood, who was our previous bill printer and mailing contractor, they were non-responsive to the contract, were providing poor services, and failed to neglect to tell the town. Excuse me, I apologize, the prior vendor, not Kirkwood. Let me correct that. Kirkwood is our new vendor for online printing, bill printing and mailing. They are a phenomenal find for us when the last vendor went out of business and didn't inform us. So I'm thrilled to announce that. So Kirkwood will be doing that work. The appropriate amount is just under $50,000, and the contract runs for the next year. And of course, we'd be looking to renew that on a regular basis going forward. The fire chief has made me aware that we finalized procurement on hose, valves, and nozzles. Again, this was related to the project list that we have. The the procurement was made through the state contract bid list. The overall quotes for vendor of Northeast Rescue were in the amount of $31,386. So again, thrilled to have that procurement done. Even greater to know that there were grants available to help offset the cost. So that's another great project that's done and procurement that's done. And related to 62 Route 28 West Harwich, as we are in the final stages of the overall request for proposals to go out shortly, we did contract with an appraisal service. Even though the town is doing the acquisition, we still want to rely upon an appraisal to understand the value of the property. So I was able to finalize a contract in the amount of $5,600, and that is for Cape Cod Appraisal Services. And again, that's related to 62 Route 28, AKA the West Harwich Baptist Church project, which is ongoing. And that is all I have because I believe, Madam Chair, you make some comments that I would agree with, but I will not steal in thunder. That's all I have for this evening.
Okay. Selectmen's comments, Don? Jeff?
Sure, I have a few if you don't mind.
Nope, go
Madam
right
Chair.
ahead.
On June 20th, which is, I believe, next Tuesday, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., Madam Chair and I will be hosting our first, what would you want to call that? Open
Office hours.
office hours at the 204 building. And we are thrilled to do that together, Madam Chair's idea, and I jumped right on it. So from 10 to 12 on Tuesday, June 20th, next week, at the 204 building, please come down, say hi, with any concerns, questions, or feelings, or anything that you may have for us.
Great.
And then secondly, I'd like to say that I had the unbelievable opportunity to go into our school system and watch our first graders perform life cycles, how plants and animals change. And a huge, huge shout out to Mrs. Hirschberger's class and Mrs. Cloney's class. It was simply amazing. The best 45 minutes I've spent in an awful long time, and to see that many people in a room, everybody smiling, the kids, the parents, the teachers, it was really something else. So I would just like to make note of that and tell all the teachers, you know, just how fortunate we are to have you in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Michael?
I have nothing.
I just have a couple of things. First is, I attended that wonderful chamber event, Brews and Bones or Barbecue, I don't know, I couldn't get the name straight, but it was fabulous. Cindy thanked all the restaurants, the breweries, some of which are my favorites, and the cupcake lady, Brenda's Cupcakes. But I'd like to thank Cindy. She is hands down one of the best Chamber of Commerce executive directors I've seen, even watching other towns. What she does is simply amazing. For a first-time event, it sold out. She got challenged by bad weather forecast in the middle of the week, had to change. Lovely Carolyn Carey jumped in and said, "No problem, come on inside." I'm sure she had to do a lot of work to make that happen. But I just think Cindy Williams does an outstanding job, and it reflects well on the whole town. So I would like, it's a small audience, but I'd like a round of applause for Cindy. And then, while we're on the happy news, I was at the Pantry's Gala Sunday evening, and Joe was there, and I happened to be talking to a guy that I know who's been a supporter of the Pantry for a long time, and he does a lot of development work, not just here in Harwich, but in a lot of towns. He's a summer resident down here. He started telling me how great it was dealing with people in the Harwich town office. He said, you can't even imagine what it's like in some other towns. He said everybody was cooperative and pleasant and took him through, things moved swiftly. So I quickly ran over and grabbed Joe. I said, you know, you get all the complaints, Joe, I want you to hear this firsthand. So that was a nice end to a great event. No one has anything else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's 4-0, Joe. Thank you.